is my intro to international relations uh, online presentation on revisions to the Japanese Constitution, specifically the Japanese military. So the reason why, so real quick introduction, my name is Don Rogacheski. I'm a senior here at Bloomsburg University, and I'm a criminal justice major. So the reason why I chose this topic is because it seemed to be a pretty new topic. I figured not a lot of people would have looked into it. And I knew that the ties to this would go back to World War II, which is something that I've always been very interested in. So just an overview of what we're going to talk about here in this presentation is, number one, we're going to talk to the history of how did the Japanese Constitution and military get to the place it is today, how and what are the reasons why they want to change. I want to talk about the current situation in the region today and what I feel the United States should do in this situation. So, a quick history. On December 7th, 1941, the Japanese Air Force bombed Pearl Harbor. This is the event that took the previously non-involved United States and had them join the World War II efforts immediately following, as this now made it personal to them as their own soil had been attacked. Just fast forward several years into the war to the very end, the United States drops the first atomic bomb on August 6, 1945. They then followed up with the second and final atomic bomb ever dropped on 3 days later. Immediately following this, Japan officially surrenders on August 15, 1945. On May 3rd, 1947, the Japanese Constitution goes into effect. A couple things about this Constitution very quickly was, number one, the United States gave the Japanese an opportunity to draft their own new Constitution. The United States did not like their new Constitution. Therefore, they wrote one for them themselves. And then, as this was an unconditional surrender from the Japanese, they effectively forced them to sign it. The second thing is that this was a pacifist constitution. What that means is that the Japanese, by signing this, gave up the sovereign right to wage war. They got rid of their own military. So a part of the current situation is the North Korea threat. One of the first things that it's important to look at here that is not on the slide is that North Korea is a communist nation and Japan is a democratic nation. Just like back in the Cold War with the United States and the Soviet Union, these two political affiliations tend to not get along. There tends to be a lot of tension and conflict between the two groups. What North Korea has done to make it a threat to their neighboring democratic country is they have at one point they had launched 5 ballistic missiles over Japan into the Pacific Ocean. All this went on, and after the 5th one, the United Nations decided to impose sanctions on North Korea, effectively telling them, don't do this again, or the international community is going to step in. North Korea then ignored them and launched a 6th missile launch over the northern part of Japan into the Pacific Ocean. This was a very big deal at the time, and still is today. It was only a few months ago. This was Kim Jong-un effectively saying, I don't care what the international community thinks of me. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to continue to further my illegal nuclear program by any means necessary, and there's nothing the United Nations can do to stop me. One thing that this also showed was that a longtime threat is now becoming more realistic to both the Japanese and the Americans, as their missiles are getting closer to American shore and can already hit their very close neighbors, South Korea and Japan. Then with this, there's also the Chinese threat. Once again, we have a communist nation and a democratic nation. Don't need to get into that again. The big thing that China has done, they've increased their presence in the North China Sea, which is the sea between China and Japan. At first glance, doesn't seem like a big deal, is they added rescue team boats in the South China Sea. What does this mean? Well, according to military experts, they seem to believe that this means China is gearing up for a naval battle. The simple reason your fleet in the South China Sea does not need a rescue boat if you do not anticipate conflict with your neighbors, because then you would have no need to have to go rescue them with these boats. Simple idea of adding more presence that close to Japan when you back the country that is the greatest threat to Japan really has the country on edge. So pretty simple. What Japan wants, they would like to change their constitution. They want to get rid of Article 9, the clause that says that they will not have a military to go to war with. It has a couple reasons that they want to do this. They want to do it to protect themselves, and a couple reasons why they want to do that is, one, yes, it is because the increased threats around them. However, it does also go deeper than that. The conservatives currently leading the country are genuinely upset that their constitution, the law of their land, was written by a foreign power. They feel that it's been 70 years. The two countries are currently allies, and there's no reason why they should not be allowed to revise their own constitution and allow themselves to have a military at this time. All right, what I believe the United States should do in this situation. I believe the United States should let them create a military. Number one, in the long term, this will be cost effective. A lot of people are saying that it will not be cost effective due to the fact that Japan pays for roughly half of the cost that it takes to have our soldiers in Japan. However, in the long term, if we replace every American soldier with a Japanese soldier, that takes a 50% cost to a 0% cost, and that will save us all the money that we are spending in Japan currently. The next reason is I don't see a valid reason why the United States should care whether or not the Japanese have their own military that can wage war. This sanction, Article 9, was imposed on the Japanese as a result of them for a long time being an adversary of the United States and the United States winning an unconditional surrender. It's been 70 years. The United States and Japan have many more ties now, be it both culturally, politically, and economically. Can't survive without us. We can't survive without them. Walk down Main Street in Bloomsburg, you will see a dozen Toyotas to prove that point. And another reason is, even if we cut down on the troops that we have in Japan, we will still keep some. I believe this undoubtedly. And also, we will then be adding Japanese soldiers. So all in all, it will allow the United States and its allies to have more troops in an unstable and hostile region. You know, that just means more friendly presence to combat North Korea if the time does come. In conclusion, I just want to say that how we got to Article 9 was a long time coming, and how we've gotten to the Japanese wanting to reform that has been an even longer time coming. And I agree with the Japanese. It is time for them to be allowed to arm themselves country and do as all other nations do. All right. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to my presentation. Have a nice night.